I don't know why this particular one came across my desk, but this old clip from Cenk talking to Patrick on Valuetainment popped up, and he talks about Joe Rogan and Jimmy Dore, and I thought what he said was pretty interesting, so let's watch it.
And I like Joe's independent attitude a ton, right? Or what used to be an independent attitude, right?
Which is Buffalo speak for, he used to agree with me, now he doesn't, so now he has no mind of his own anymore.
Nowadays, I think he's lost his way. So I think he got captured by the right wing. He doesn't even realize it. Almost all of his guests are right wing or fake left wingers who are pushing for right wing agenda.
Or there used to be lukewarm liberals on the precipice overlooking the abyss of leftist stupidity, and they had some reservations about joining the rest of you numpties as you yelled right winger at them, spinning round and round like you're flushed down the toilet.
And so, he's surrounded himself with a wall of right wingers, and he's created a bubble.
Yes, because numbskulls like you brand him a right-winger because leftists don't go on his show anymore. Or the ones that do are not left-wing enough according to your criteria.
Bill Maher's the same way. A wall of right-wingers. All their friends are right-wing, right?
Yeah, Bill Maher is a shill. He just mumbles conservative points years after conservatives tell the liberals, this is what your stupid ideas will amount to.
And so now he's not independent. He doesn't do both sides.
And since when do you?
He doesn't have real...
You think he's a right wing?
Yeah, of course.
You think Joe's right wing?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and so... Is he
right of where, though, Cenk?
No, do I think he's right
Right
wing?
of center or right of you?
No, right of center. Okay, but...
Rogan?
Okay,
and Bill Maher, too, you're saying?
I love this moment. Let's get a close-up of Patrick's face. That is a look of a man thinking, what on earth is he smoking?
Again, it depends on the issues. So you can take an issue that Bill Maher is super liberal on and go, come on, you can't call him right wing, right? But I could show you 10 issues where he's just obsessed with cancel culture and only from the left-wing perspective, not the right-wing perspective.
Yeah, because the right doesn't campaign to get people canceled, you disingenuous tool. And I love his justification for the right-wing labeler. Oh, it just depends on the issue. As if you can't ever criticize your own side, because it makes you right-wing somehow. Except when Cenk criticizes the left, because his justification for his actions is, I'm doing it from the left. So evidently it doesn't matter where you stand personally on any sort of issue. No. All that matters is where you stand when you critique it. So according to Cenk, liberals don't have any solid positions at all. No, it just moves as a mass. And if you don't believe and follow along with the groupthink, you're not really a liberal. That's a cult.
He loves, by the way, Bill Maher loves corporate Democrats. Okay, just loves them to pieces. So to me, on economic issues, he's same issues as all those corporate Democrats. Anyways, so Joe, it's a matter of emphasis. So I hear that he's pro-choice, but does he ever talk about that? Almost never, right? But on any right-wing issues, oh my God, trans rights, this, that, the other thing, he's like super animated about, right?
Yes, because he does combat sports where the issue of hormones, bone density, and muscle mass actually come into play. Duh. Notice that's not a political issue, that's a scientific issue made political.
Whenever it's a right-wing issue, he will spend hours and hours and hours discussing it. If he has left-wing positions, not a peep. There's a thing called audience capture, where your audience starts to go in a certain direction. It starts to build momentum. Then if you try to change, all of a sudden your audience numbers drop and people panic, okay? Now, Joe's already rich, so he doesn't have to worry too much about that. I think he got more guests captured than audience captured.
Yes, Cenk, it's almost like you can have conversations with people who are smarter and know more than you, and you can learn from them. Your positions and thoughts change. It's called growth.
But like guys like Jimmy Dore get audience captured like crazy. So once they, like Jimmy Dore used to be on the left, and he was doing comedian, right? He was in our network. One of the worst mistakes I've ever made. And so
having him on?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he goes independent. Now he's at one point he's doing pro-vaccine videos. He got a vaccine. They're not doing that well, right? Then he does one that's vaccine skeptical. It does great. Okay, so all right, then he does another one that's vaccine skeptical because he wants the views, he wants the money, right? And so all of a sudden then next thing you know, he's on 20 videos against vaccines or vaccine skepticism because that's where the audience is going, that's where the money is going, and that's how. And there was a progressive in our network who said, look, the same thing happened to me. I was criticizing Democrats so much from a left-wing position, but I was criticizing Democrats. And one day I woke up and I found out my audience is right-wing. Like, I asked him a poll question. Holy cow, these guys are like 70% right-wing. So he's like, I had to make a principled choice there. And I did. And I cut off 70% of my audience. And I started talking more about my left-wing positions, not just anti-Democrat positions.
Now, my own feeling about Jimmy is in some ways the most frustrating lefty I see, because being one of the saner, clear-thinking lefties, he's pretty good at diagnosing problems. And the actual ones, mind you, not the race-betting rubbish that BLM spouts off about. But that's as far as the brilliance go. He has no concept of the nature of humans or power, never giving a second thought as to why the way he wants the state to operate never comes to fruition. And seeing that play out over and over and over again, and never does the person ever take a second to reconsider their position and realize it's horribly flawed, will drive a viewer completely insane. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you will know I am no fan of democracy, I am a monarchist. And several months ago, I discussed democracy from the position of democratic and monarchical-minded engineers. The monarchical-minded would see the structure, the incentives, the constant bloated growth of bureaucratic monstrosity and say, this design is a catastrophe, scrap it and replace it. Presumably with the monarchy, their assessment is the design is flawed. The democratic-minded would disagree and say, no, the design is fine, you just need better components. Naturally, the monarchical-minded engineers are correct. Democracy was tried centuries ago, it was scrapped and a return to monarchy was in order. Not to mention the philosophers and scholars who said democracy is a road to tyranny. They are correct. I also discovered through some of my own tinkering that one of democracy's biggest flaws is in fact a feature, which is that adaptive learning and political maneuvering is borderline impossible within the democratic apparatus. What I mean by this is normal humans, upon learning new information or experience a change in circumstance, will be either forced to or move their thinking towards a different direction and their positions change accordingly. This is how any sane, rational human mind works. However, due to the structures of democratic politics, this process doesn't fly all that well. In politics, the representative changing their opinion is seen as either a move of dishonesty, moving away from a position they espoused prior to being elected, or is seen as some cynical move to remain in power. And very often this is the case. Now, given that people's positions change due to circumstances, it could only stand to reason that if the position of the constituents change course, then the representative of those people must then change accordingly as well. It's absurd to say, so-and-so politician was for position X, and then when the position of the people changed, oh, so did the politician. Again, that's not a flaw of democracy, that's a feature. So to suggest that they shouldn't ever change is to submit to the idea that any political representative should forever be shackled to an ideological position like some brainwashed cultist. Because again, if they change first, they're going against the will of the people. If they change too late, they're ignoring the will of the people. Change with them, it looks either dishonest or like they're trying to take advantage of the situation. There's no way of knowing. Now what's funny is there is a striking sort of parallel with Cenk's claim of Jimmy's move of becoming right-wing, the so-called audience capture and the problem with the politician and the democratic apparatus, only some things are inverted in this scenario. You've heard Cenk's claims, so how about Jimmy's? Because I remember Jimmy was on Joe Rogan talking about this very issue several months ago, because he took the NOD and he experienced some problems with it after the second one, stiff neck, as did his wife, as did his producer. So being a curious person with access to a lot of opinions via social media, he tweeted about it. He got some feedback, including from a doctor, who was leading some other doctors looking into this very issue, who told him this is what they think is causing it, etc., etc. So he got some blood work done, found some abnormalities, went to his doctor after talking to the other doctors, only to be told by his own doctor, oh, I'm treating several patients with the exact same problems as you. So Jimmy, being a lefty, media personality and all, talks about this. Because for some bizarre reason, the left don't quite remember they used to be massively against big corporations, including Big Pharma. But the second Big Pharma appeared like the good guys under the guise of safety, the lefties would bend over and take it up the rear all day, till Ben Shapiro's mug could be filled with their tears. Now, because Jimmy espouses this position, which is critical of big corporations, he's critical of the state for being censorious about the whole affair, which right-wingers, especially libertarians, can get behind. Same as being very anti-war, also a position the isolationist libertarian-minded people can get behind. And by the way, these are all positions the left has classically had for decades, going all the way back to the hippies of the 60s. And Jimmy knows this. Now, because Jimmy finds some common ground with people who are skeptical of power, which happen to be on the right, now Jimmy must carry the label of right-winger, which is insane. But again, these people are cultists, they follow the one-drop rule. They're not individualistic, they adhere to some bizarre concoction of zealot-like purity and collectivist form. And the moment you violate one of the tenets and find common ground with someone not of the tribe, you will be branded a heretic and a skeptic. Ostracized from the tribe you will be. Now, this to me is where it gets kind of weird in an interesting sort of way. Let's say Cenk is correct. This is some cynical ploy by Jimmy to get more money. I mean, is Jimmy still consistent? Yes, so Cenk is talking bollocks, but what else is new? Personally, I think Cenk is massively envious of Jimmy's solo success, but that's just my perspective. But anyway, we're back to the political conundrum. If Jimmy did videos promoting the NOD before, and it wasn't doing as well as Cenk said, and this is how Jimmy makes his money, it's not economically prosperous for him to do so. At the very least, he can choose not to talk about this particular subject and deviate to something that will perform better. Everyone with me so far? Alright, good. If Jimmy took this stupid thing and experiences some trouble, does research about it like any sane person would, and talks about it, aside from you, Cenk, labeling this perspective right-wing because you think this is what the right wing stands for because you're some Neanderthal tribalist, what does this have to do with political affiliation exactly? You're talking about medical science and gross misuse of state power. That is healthy skepticism, not politically affiliated. That's just good common sense. What is Jimmy supposed to do? Promote the thing, suffer poor consequences when taking the product, only to find out other people also suffer similar consequences, and yet keep promoting it, Cenk? He'd not only be psychotically irresponsible by not speaking about his own experiences, he'd look suicidally stupid and dishonest as well. So Jimmy speaks candidly about his experience, it does well with his audience, he becomes more informed, as does his audience, and he gets more money for his efforts, all of which are objectively good. So what's your problem, Cenk? Again, I think it's purely envy. And the example he gave at the end there, what absolute idiot is going to find out their audience is of one political persuasion, which they are not, and then decides to shred their entire consumer base? That is not a principled decision, that's just straight up stupid. Like, you still believe the things you said, it merely attracted a new audience that agreed with some of what you had to say. Now you're going to axe the overwhelming majority of your audience in order to further radicalize a smaller group of people who already agreed with you. Like, congratulations, you just admitted you want a small echo chamber, and nothing more. Again, that's not principle, that's just straight up stupid. A smart person would have said, I have a lot of common ground with right-wingers apparently. Maybe I can slowly pull them over to the left over time with some carefully constructed arguments. But no, they decided to go full mongoloid and slash 70% of their viewership. If I found out a sizable chunk of my audience are lefties, I'm not going to go hard right and kick them out. I'm going to think, excellent potential right-wingers, let's carry on. Blasting your audience is not a principled position, no, that just shows you're weak-minded and afraid of learning something new. Or, here is something even more distressing for lefties, the fact that they might actually be wrong. Tim Pool is going through that exact same process at this very moment. It's going to be a wild ride to see how that one turns out, I'll tell you that. And that is all for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.